Hello students, today I am going to cover the remaining part of the video which will be the last part of the lesson, footprints without feet. So without wasting the time, let us begin. Now you can see on the screen that this was the last paragraph we had left in the part 2 video in which we had come to know about the burglary at the house of Kalarji Mans. So we will start our story from here. Then, to his amazement, he realized that the room appeared to be empty. He and his wife looked under the desk and behind the curtains and even up the chimney. There wasn't a sign of anybody. Yet the desk had been opened and the housekeeping money was missing. So they were surprised to the scene because they couldn't see anyone in the room. They looked under the desk and behind the curtains and even they looked up the chimney, but the person was nowhere to be seen. Yet the desk had been opened and housekeeping money was gone. Extraordinary affair, the clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day. But it was not as extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. So, let us get the explanation of this paragraph. Then, the clergyman kept on saying extraordinary affair the whole day because he was shocked by the incident, but the things that happened with Mrs. Hall's furniture were much more fascinating and surprising than the thought that the landlord was thinking about. The landlord and his wife were up very early and were surprised to see the scientist's door wide open. Usually it was shut and locked, and she was furious if anyone entered his room. The opportunity seemed too good to be missed. They peeped round the door, saw nobody, and decided to investigate. The bedclothes were pulled, showing that the scientist must have been up for some time. And stranger still, the clothes and bandages that he always wore were lying about the room. Mr. Hall and her husband woke up very early in the morning and were surprised by the door that was wide open. Usually, his room's door remained closed and locked, and he used to get angry if anyone tried to enter the room. So it was an opportunity for Mrs. Hall and her husband. They didn't want to miss it. So they decided to investigate when they saw that there was nobody inside the room. The bed sheets were cold, which showed that he must have been up for a while. He was still a stranger for them. The clothes and bandages that he always tied around his face were also lying around the room. All of a sudden, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ear. A moment later, the hat on the bedpost leaped up and dashed itself into her face. Then the bedroom chair became alive. Springing into the air, it charged straight at her, legs foremost. As she and her husband turned away in terror, the extraordinary chair pushed them both out of the room and then appeared to slam and lock the door after them. So, suddenly Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ear, and Griffin's hat that was lying on the bedpost flung towards Mrs. Hall and hit her on her face. Then the chair also began to move in the room, and suddenly it dashed itself, hitting Mrs. Hall in her legs. Being scared, Mrs. Hall and her husband were just going out of the room. The chair pushed itself forward and closed the door of the room, and suddenly the sound of slamming the door and locking were heard. What they was, it was the door that was closed completely by itself. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in hysterics. She was convinced that the room was haunted by spirits and that the stranger had somehow caused these to enter into her furniture. My poor mother used to sit in that chair, she moaned. To think it should rise up against me now. So this terrorized Mrs. Hall and she was about to fall down from the stairs. She was convinced of the thought that there were spirits in the room and this was only because of the stranger. She moaned that her mother used to sit in the chair which hit her legs and thought that how could it rise up against her? Feeling among the neighbors was that the trouble was caused by witchcraft. But witchcraft or not, when news of the burglary at the clergyman's home became known, the strange scientist was strongly suspected of having had a hand in it. Suspicion grew even stronger when he suddenly produced some ready cash, though he had admitted not long before that he had no money. So, the neighbors of Mrs. Hall thought that it was witchcraft which had caused such a thing to happen. But when the news of the burglary at the clergyman's house went viral in the village, everyone started suspecting the stranger, the scientist. And the suspicion grew stronger when he suddenly produced ready cash for his payment, even though he had told some time back that he didn't have money and was waiting for a check to arrive. The village constable was secretly sent for. Instead of waiting for the constable, Mrs. Hall went to the scientist who had somehow mysteriously appeared from his empty bedroom. I want to know what you have been doing to my chair upstairs, she demanded. And I want to know how it is you came out of an empty room and how you entered a locked room. Then the village constable was called secretly. But Mrs. Hall didn't want to wait for him. She went straight to the scientist's room, who was mysteriously appeared from nowhere. She asked him what he had been doing upstairs with the chairs and furniture. She also asked him how he had come out from the empty room or enter the locked bed. The scientist was always quick-tempered. Now he became furious. You don't understand who or what I am, he shouted. Very well, I shall show you. Suddenly, he threw up bandages, whiskers, spectacles, and even nose. It took him only a minute to do this. The horrified people in the bar found themselves staring at a headless man. The scientist became really angry and started shouting that who or what he was and decided to show them the truth. Suddenly, he began to remove his bandages, whiskers, spectacles, and also his nose. It took him just a minute to do all this, and the people in the bar were horrified as they looked at the headless man. Mr. Jeffers, the constable, now arrived and was quite surprised to find that he had to arrest a man without a head. But Jeffers was not easily prevented from doing his duty. If a magistrate's warrant ordered a person's arrest, then that person had to be arrested with or without his head. This time, Mr. Jeffers, the constable, arrived and he was quite surprised to see that the headless man whom he was going to arrest. But Jeffers still wanted to do his duty as he knew that the magistrate wanted to do his duty, as he knew that the magistrate wanted him to arrest the person and it didn't matter that he had a head or not. There followed a remarkable scene as the policeman tried to get hold of a man who was becoming more and more invisible as he threw up one garment after another. Finally, a shot flew into the air and the constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. Some people tried to help him but found themselves hit by blows that seemed to come from nowhere. Now, the scene became too much remarkable when the policeman tried to get hold on the man who was throwing off his garments one by one and was becoming more and more invisible. Finally, the scientist, Griffin, threw off his last garment into the air and became invisible completely. The policeman was trying to struggle with someone who he could not see at all, and the people who were trying to help Jeffers, the constable, they received blows from nowhere. In the end, Jeffers was knocked unconscious as he made a last attempt to hold on to the unseen scientist. There were nervous, excited cries of "Hold him!" but this was easier said than done. Griffin had shaken himself free and no one knew where to lay hands on him. So this was our last paragraph. Now what happened? Jeffers made his last attempt to get hold on the invisible man, but he got a hard blow from the man and became unconscious. There were nervousness and cries by the people. They were shouting, hold him, repeatedly. But Griffin had set himself free from them and nobody understood how to catch him. So students, this is our last video of the chapter Footprints Without Feet, and I hope that you have enjoyed a lot. You have got all the points, and I think that the explanation of this chapter was quite simple. If you have some doubt and some questions, you may ask and drop your comments in the comment box. Thank you very much.